almost ruined the other session. The pop-up.
Okay, I can see that the session has started recording, and let's kick it off. We are now live. So, for everyone joining, my name is Derek. I am joining you today currently in Toronto, Ontario. I'm probably the only person in this room that's not a product designer, but I am specialized in changing careers. I support entrepreneurs on a daily basis as they go to start their own companies. And I'm joined here by 4 amazing designers who are keen to share their stories about how they broke into design and how they got their career to be where it is today. So joining us is Meagan, currently working at the Zuckerberg Initiative all the way out in San Francisco, California. We have Roberto from Zendesk, who's joining us from Dublin, Ireland. We have Yulin, currently working at Squarespace, joining us from New Jersey in the United States. And Ademola, currently working at Utiva and as a mentor at Design Lab, joining us from Lagos, Nigeria. Everyone, how are you doing? Feel free to jump on the mic. Come say hi.
So excited to be here. Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Actually,
and Derek, you're not the only product. You're not
the only
one.
This is the first time that we've... Oh, sorry, Roberto, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you're not the only one not product designer now, right here, because I'm instructional designer, so...
Well, I'm glad to not be the only newbie in the room. And it'll give a variety of different perspectives for people listening at home. And although we've been chatting on email and on LinkedIn for the last few months, this is the first time that we've all had a chance to actually meet, see each other's faces, and get to know each other. So let's spend a little time getting to know all of each other's stories. Considering we're here at the Own Your Career panel today, I'd love to rewind it back from where we started the panel, which is maybe at the ending where we all are today, and back to the beginning when we were all just starting our careers. So maybe Meagan, if you want to kick us off, what's the earliest memory you have of wanting to break into design, and walk us through that decision process?
Yeah, so I have a degree in graphic design, and web design and digital design was not really a thing back then. I always dreamed of being a magazine editor and having a fancy job in Chicago or New York, but I did a web design class in school and really took to it. A lot of the ideas really resonated. I loved having a design and then being able to make it work underneath the hood. So when I graduated, I got a job working at an advertising agency and realized I'm not actually artistic. And we had one web design project that came in the house. Nobody knew how to do web design at my agency. So I took it and decided to make the switch. And then I never looked back.
Right on. I want to get everybody a chance to give their story. So you started initially interested in web design, then into advertising, and then were able to use the passion that you had learned from web design. Was this in high school, university, or when did you start to pick up these web design skills?
I went to the University of South Florida, which is a state school in Florida. And I had a friend, the design community in Florida is very small and there aren't a ton of jobs. And I had a friend who moved out to California and was like, hey, there are a ton of jobs out here. Product design is this new thing. So I started contracting at Facebook. I didn't know what product design was. Starting as a contractor really helped me get in the door. I started as a contractor as doing just whatever they needed, production, design, web design. And then I started dipping my toe in product design, learned what strategy was and product thinking was. And yeah, I was very, very fortunate to get in the back door as a contractor, if you will.
Right on. And one last quick question I have for you is from looking at your resume, I can see that you went and you did a bachelor's degree of fine arts in graphic design. And how did your graphic design skills translate into more software focused product building or product designing?
Yeah, I mean, visual design is a tool that both graphic designers and product designers have in their toolkit. I think for me as a graphic designer, I use visual design to decorate and to make things look enticing or to have people feel an emotion with a logo or a website. But product design, it's more used as a tool to help solve people problems. So that plus interaction design. So they're complementary skills. So I always had that skill. It was just looking at it differently and using it to solve a different problem or to approach problem solving in a different way.
Right on. And Roberto, feel free to jump on. I know that you don't come from the same background in graphic design. So tell me a little bit about how you got started here.
Well, no, I actually come from graphic design as well and multimedia design in general. So I think when I was 17, 18 years old, or even before then, I've always been fascinated by advertising in general. Loved graphic design, looking at those cool posters out of the cinema, book covers. So yeah, I'm always fascinated by that. And at that time, my brother also had a screen printing laboratory, so I was really into this stuff. So when it was time to sign up for the university, I wanted to study something that had to do with it. And I looked
Yeah,
at
I saw that you had a
Yeah.
degree in like arts and music and spectacle, and
Yeah.
I've never learned about spectacle before. So maybe I'm so sorry for getting
yeah,
it
maybe
wrong.
it's the way I translate from the Italian, and but yeah, it's basically show business. Like yeah,
Oh no
and
way! That's amazing.
and yeah, it was this new experimental course at my university. I was so lucky because they started this just in my city, and everything was covered, like things like digital communication, 3D graphics, programming languages, but also aesthetics, semiotic, psychology. So we had professors from engineering and from humanism. So that was really like very inspiring. And so when I made this choice, I decided to sign up for these. And I considered I haven't considered only what I liked with all these covered what I liked, but also considered what career opportunities I would get after studying.
Yeah,
And
like
so
it.
that's why
So
I made the
you didn't think
choice.
you were destined for a career in show business, more focusing on
No,
your design
no.
skills.
I think for me, like the design skills, the design part was more grounded to her in my case. Yeah.
That's awesome. I want to jump back to the story, but I want to bring up Ademola next. So I know that you don't come from a traditional design background. You came from the trades, if I'm correct. So how did this all start for you? What's your journey been like? Oh, sorry. Your microphone's just on either mute right now or it's not working. Utkarsh, if you don't mind giving him a quick hand, then maybe we'll come back to you just as I just don't want to leave too much dead air. Yulin, how are you doing?
Good. Thank you. So
How'd you get started in this? What
yeah.
what's the earliest memory you have of like wanting to get into this sort of career? And you're now in UX research.
Yes. So I tried getting into UX design, but I have a lot of respect and I adore designers, but I felt like research was more intriguing for me, especially with my background in psychology, and I also had a degree in teaching languages. So this is all like a curvy road, but I feel like there's no wasted experience. So I'd say my first knowledge of UX was actually this online course on Coursera that I found called Interaction Design. And I was very surprised that I was able to finish all like 6 or 7 courses in that one series. I was never able to finish any online courses completely before. So the capstone project was actually to do like a research and design project. And towards the end of it, the prize for the project was to meet the founders of Instagram. So also to Facebook. So I was very thrilled at the time, and I was like, yeah, I wanted to get into tech. But yeah, I took some I also tried different things, and ultimately, I think I am in tech now. But there's still so much more things that I didn't know about, and I'd love to explore this with others. Yeah.
Yeah, like, do you think it was that like that carrot at the end of the stick of meeting the Instagram founders that was motivating you to complete this course, or like what was it? What was different about
Yeah,
going through this
I love that
this
question.
course in design that like made you feel that maybe this was the right thing for you? This was the most exciting thing you've done in a while.
Yeah, I love that because before taking the course, I knew that I was interested in like commenting on apps, like helping my friends set up routers, all things techie. But I wouldn't say that I was a programmer or a developer. Didn't have skills in that. But I noticed that in the course, so much was emphasized regarding like the users are not the ones to blame; it's the design. And I was like, yes, that was what I was thinking. So I wanted to know like what are some principles that I could use to help figure those things out. Like how can I help my mom understand apps or how to set things up? So yeah,
If
that
you could
was.
help anyone's mom understand apps, like I will hire you contract basis. Um, so, Ademola, how are you doing? Is your mic back to working right now? Uh-oh, still not yet. I'm not sure what's going on, my friend. We might not be able to. We'll try again in a few minutes. I'll let you keep troubleshooting on your end. Um, but it's just too bad. You have a really really cool story. You sent me so many interesting notes that I wanted to dive into. Maybe I'll try and summarize some of the learnings that you wanted to share near the end if we're not able to get you on mic. But let's bring it back to Meagan. So Meagan, if you uh, can put yourself back in the shoes of when you just started your career, you're contracting at Facebook. Let's talk about how you actually planned out your career from maybe then till now. Like, did you have a plan? Did you know what was going to happen? Like, how was the journey compared to what you imagined it to be?
If you asked me when I graduated, success would have been getting married, having kids, being a creative director at a fancy ad shop, and moving to Chicago from Florida. And that was my like life plan. But then I went out to Facebook, and all of that kind of blew up. And I found myself asking the question, what do I want to be when I grow up? And I actually ask myself that question every 6 months.
It's my favorite interview question. No matter
Yeah.
what age someone is, like, I don't think we've ever grown up. I mean, so tell me about your story.
Yeah. Well, I had never worked at a tech company before, and I think they have a real focus on helping you grow in your career and as a person. And I had never seen that before. So I was asking myself a lot of questions I never asked. Like, one, I have this idea of success, but what actually makes me happy? What experiences in my day to day give me energy? Which ones drain me? What kind of problems excite me and make me want to come to work? What kind of problems do I hate working on? So luckily at Facebook, after I transitioned to full time, there are so many different problem spaces. You can change teams every year. So I tried on a bunch of different projects, saw what fit. I started on Marketplace, and then after the 2016 election, went to civic engagement, and then social good work was very taxing, so transitioned to app monetization to see how an app makes money. Didn't love that when a dollar sign was assigned to a metric. So, okay, let's try Newsfeed, working on creative tools. Will that make me happy? And it was there and working on cultural programs that I was starting to get more fulfillment working on with people than I was my product work. So I was like, oh, maybe I'll try managing. So I decided to make the change. And I think one thing that stuck with me is no decision felt permanent. I think that it feels that way, but realistically, if you don't like something, interview, get a different job. If you don't like a role, so that really helped
So
in my
yeah, because
journey.
you've made a lot of changes. And I think like
Yeah.
that process of switching careers or like making these changes can feel challenging or difficult, or it's scary venturing into the unknown. So maybe can you talk a little bit about like what maybe your experience inside of Facebook, obviously being a giant tech company, that has a different culture, and like maybe what you'd recommend for people listening as to how they can have the confidence that these changes are the right thing to do, or how to go about navigating these conversations with a manager when you say, hey, actually, I'm not happy here with this dollar metric that I have to do it. I'd prefer to work with people.
Yeah. You have to trust your gut. I mean, I think if the pandemic has taught me anything, time is all you have. So really, I have check-ins with myself every 6 months, and I have a hypothesis going into that 6 months of questions I have about myself, things I want to learn, things I want to accomplish. And then at the end of the 6 months, I'm like, okay, did I like this product? Do I want to continue working on it? Great, I'll stay on the product. If I don't, okay, maybe it's time. What did I learn? And looping your manager in, your manager is a partner. They should be your kind of champion, and their success is your success, and vice versa. It is really scary, but having a support system within your colleagues, one of the things I like to do as well is tell all my closest working partners what my goals are. So you have people carving out those opportunities for you. And people, when you tell them your goals, most people want to help. They'll want to help you, and they'll help keep you accountable. So having a little cohort and support system makes things like that a little less scary, to go back to your question. But yeah, having those regular check-ins, I think, really takes the finality off the decision, that you know that you might make a change every 6 months, and you almost give yourself permission to follow what makes you feel good and what doesn't. Knowing that, okay, I'm going to have a check-in at the end of this half. Let me just hang in there for 6 months. If it works out, great. We'll take that data and move forward. If it doesn't, we'll make some changes.
Yeah, brilliant. And Roberto, I want to know what you think about this as well, because similar to Meagan, you've had a similar story where you were at a tech company for 7 or 8 years, and you made a number of changes in your own path at Zendesk. So, like, hearing her story, how does it compare with yours?
Yeah, I like what Meagan said about checking in regularly and see if you are happy, if you are not, and then you can just change. Because I mean, we're so lucky to live in this time where there are so many companies out there, and we can work wherever we are. So the range is larger, is bigger. Yeah, I had a similar path. Like when I started at Zendesk, I started in customer advocacy, which is something very far from being a designer. And this after 15 years already, I was a designer. But the thing is, through my beginning, the first years of my career, I just kept doing web design, brand design, graphic design, and at some point I stopped liking work to work for some customers, and I wanted to change, but I was stubborn because I said, no, but I'm a graphic designer. I want to keep doing this. And at the same time, I was looking at other people I knew, and they were working on cool projects. They were managing teams, and they was, oh wow, they are so successful. And I'm look at me, what am I doing? But then that felt frustrating, but that eventually stopped frustrating me when I stopped measuring my success against other people's success. So at some point, I just realized that each person has their values. And if I'd live by them and do what matters to me the most, then I'd be successful, no matter the title or work. So at some point, what I really wanted to do was to have a job experience abroad. So I just looked at what could get me there, job experience abroad. So I started sending my CV all around Europe, and then I got these opportunities in customer advocacy. So what I looked at that point was, okay, let's see. This opportunity was here in Ireland. Let's see, Dublin is the tech hub in Europe. There are these and these and these companies. So I'll get there. I'll improve my English, and at the same time, I'll try to get into this back on track, right? So, like if I can't enter the front door, maybe I can enter sideways. So that's what
Right.
happened.
And did you find that like changing some of their goals around instead of like, hey, I just want to get the promotion like that guy and or that girl, and instead focusing on like your own personal values and like the actual experiences you want to have in life? Did that actually help achieve the other goals of like becoming getting that promotion or getting the next opportunity? Or how did those two things go hand in
It
hand?
did because, for example, the first few years I worked in advocacy, I worked for one year and a half in advocacy. That still gave me very powerful skills that I eventually transferred again back to being a designer, which is, for example, empathy. When you are working in customer experience, you learn so much about what customers want, and then you can empathize with them. And so, just to make it shorter, when I joined Zendesk, it was a startup, and there were many roles available in the company. So it was just a matter of starting, showing my value, showing my skills, and then as soon as the opportunity arose, um, I joined the other teams, and then eventually went back to instructional design, which is a discipline very cool because one thing I always did as a designer, it was also teaching design, and as instructional designer, you put all this together. You have to do a lot of research, filling the gaps, helping customers to learn a product or a service, writing a lot of content, and then putting them together in deliverables, which could be like videos, e-learning modules, or other products like this. So yeah, that worked for me.
Yulin, you have a different set of experiences, I think, to Meagan and Ryan. That like you haven't been in one place for a number of years at a time, and from my memory of looking at your resume, you've had a number of interesting experiences. So how can you maybe contrast like maybe incremental building and taking one lesson from one part of the company and applying it to your growth in a new part of the company, and instead building on a number of separated experiences to build where you are today?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. And just to call out, I think I was able to hear Ademola for a second. So I
Okay,
think the
I'm gonna
mic
get to
is
him
back.
next, and I want to hear his story.
I'll give a few bullet points. So I think it's the trend of working as a UXer somewhere, because sometimes I feel like the turnovers in companies are quick. People come in and then leave. Sometimes I feel like, oh, I don't know where we're going to end up soon. But I think that's actually it's for the better, because people find opportunities and then people are chasing what they love to work on. And for me, I think for the first 3 years of my career, the first year it was a contract. So towards the end, I just had to find another full-time job because I wanted more security. And then when I was at the previous role, I stayed there for 2 years. I really enjoyed like being the UX advocate at a nonprofit. I was the one who was helping people learn about UX. I was just bringing like new practices to the really seasoned researchers. However, towards the end, I felt like I wanted more exposure to working with designers, working with product managers, and see like how research is done in the industry compared to the traditional academia world. So that was why I decided to make the move. And I would love to stay in the current role for a bit longer so that I can see myself through some big changes and then the impact I make. But yeah, I don't know where I'm gonna go moving forward. But yeah.
And are you most motivated by the impact that you're making, or similar to say Roberto and Meagan, where it's about maybe like using some of the career growth as a means of fulfilling basic life goals of just being happy or wanting to travel?
Yeah, I think I'm still able to do that. That's what I feel very fortunate about. I still have the good like work-life balance, and I feel positive that I will be able to find it as well in the next role. But for now, when I'm still enjoying the projects and my managers are good mentors, I can learn a lot from them. I feel like there is a reason to stay. Yeah, for now.
Right on. And Ademola, I don't want to leave you hanging for too long. Are we working? Is the mic working?
Yeah, I think it's fine now.
Wonderful. I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay,
So great
great.
to have you here.
Yeah,
Let's rewind it
yeah.
back to the start. What's your story? You jumped into design from a very non-traditional design background. Tell me about it.
Okay, yeah. So I was introduced to design when I was 15. I was basically done with my high school. So my dad took me to a design school that was close to the house. So when I got there, I was confused on why he brought me to the design school because I was quite young. I needed time to take a break from school. So it was like, oh, I need to take up some other things while the school is still on break. So I had to take a design course in graphic design, and it lasted for about 6 months. After I was done with that, I returned back to school to complete my secondary school education. Then I proceeded to the university. I studied insurance in the university, but I got my first job while I was in the second year in the university. But after the time I had my first training, it was quite tedious. It was quite discouraging for me because I was the only person in my community that had such skill. While I was going for my trainings, other kids were always making jest of me. I see them playing football. I see them playing around in the community while I go to learn. So most times I'm always discouraged to go for my classes. I just want to play, but I just want to be with my friends. But I discovered that learning graphics for me is actually a very great thing because right from the first day I was in the class, I discovered that this is actually what I'm cut out for to do. So even with the fact that I studied insurance in the university, I decided to pursue a career in design. So I started out as a graphic designer, but along the line, I transitioned to product design. And this is what, as a result of the project I worked on. So a friend reached out to me that he was trying to tackle one of the social issues that we currently have in Nigeria, which is leadership issues. So we decided to work on a leadership board game that teaches young adults basic principles, basic things they need to know about leadership. So he brought me on board as a graphic designer to work on that project. So I worked on the branding and the other visuals of the project. Then there was another product designer who was also brought on board to work on the product. So I worked closely with the guy to map out what the visuals will look like. So I really fell in love with the approach the other designers used while trying to solve the problem we are trying to address. So I had a conversation with him and he explained some of the processes to him, and I decided that I think this is more interesting than graphic design. And I made a decision to pursue career in that. Then along the line, I've been able to work on different award-winning projects that are impacting lives all over the world.
And like from your story, it sounds like you stumbled into design from like a more traditional career of insurance.
Yeah, yeah.
But then once you found out that you were really good at it, just to continue down that path. Um,
Yeah.
like how would you like what advice would you give to people who are listening that maybe are thinking of doing the same, where they come from one career and they're trying to get into another?
Yeah, I think what is important is to understand what really makes you happy. I've never for once practiced insurance throughout my 4 year in the university and even after university because it wasn't something that was giving me the joy I would have felt if I was into design. Design happens to be something that I can do even without being paid. I remember when I started out, I was not designing for money. I was designing because I have passion for it. So at the long run, even though I'm getting paid now, but I still get more fulfillment while doing design. So I think the advice I would give anybody that is trying to switch career is to understand what gives them joy, what gives them fulfillment, and they should pursue it.
Yeah, and I want to actually bring everyone in. We have about 10 minutes left, and there's some Q&A in the chat. If everyone gives you like a one sentence answer, like what gives you fulfillment in your job, and how do you know that this is the right thing for you?
I think for me, what gives me fulfillment is seeing the impact that the product I have designed.
I think we lost Ademola.
Ademola, if you can hear us, we've lost you. Yulin, why don't you jump in with your answer? like what gives you passion and fulfillment with your work? If you were to give like one sentence to people who are listening who maybe don't do UX research.
Yeah, I'm thinking of yesterday, what I felt was fulfilling to me. I think it's something that I figured out through hard work, or like heads down work, and something that also makes the team feel like, oh, I got it. So something that's digestible, but it's not also not surface level stuff.
Right on. Meagan and Roberto, feel free to jump in.
Yeah. Of all the different products I've worked on, from Facebook to Coinbase, what really makes me happy is working on products that have a real world impact for good, and at a company that cares deeply about people. But if you ask me at every point in my career, I was definitely optimizing for something different. But my journey has led me to find money doesn't buy happiness, which is a very entitled stance to take. I recognize that, but that working in a mission-driven company is what makes me happy.
That's awesome. And Roberto, close
Yeah,
us
pretty
off.
much the same for me. When I see the impact of what I'm doing, when I'm proud of when I tell other people what I do and I'm proud of it, and they're proud of me. But I think maybe the easiest is to tell you something about when I'm completely bored, when I stop to be proud, or when I feel I'm not growing, is probably when on Sunday night I already look forward to the next weekend. So that means that no, I'm not doing things right here. I have to change something.
Yeah, and like this kind of leads straight into my final question that I want to round out with before we get to Q&A. Once again, I want to ask all of you the same question, which is if you can look back on everything that you've done so far and everything that you built for yourself so far, what would you tell your younger self? And Roberto, it sounds
Yeah,
like some sage advice to make sure that, like, if all you look forward to is
yeah,
the weekend, that you're doing it wrong, right? But tell me what you feel.
yeah. I would tell to my younger self, don't think too much about choices you make because it will eventually work out, and just to get out of the comfort zone whenever you get the chance. Yeah.
Right on, Ademola. If you
Yeah, I
if you
think I
could,
think for me, yeah,
oh, sorry, go
I
ahead, go
think
ahead.
for me is to always okay. Yeah, I think for me it's always to like talk about the work you do, put yourself out there. I'm actually a kind of a shy person, so I really don't talk about my work. I just like show it. So most times, so I feel going forward is to always like talk about my work, let people be aware of this is what I do, put myself out there.
Right on, Meagan.
I have a couple of like cheesy things that have kind of been echoed here, but progress is not always linear. You know, you want your career to be like this and every opportunity to be a step up, but sometimes it's like this. Also factoring in health, family, other areas of your life that aren't your career. So that's one. Also, establish what success looks like for you, because if you don't, your company might do that for you, and you might be following a different path of what success looks like that isn't true to who you are or what you care about.
That's awesome. And Yulin.
Yeah, I'll share two. The first is I would tell myself to stay curious about what others do, because nowadays we feel like, oh, why don't you know about UX? UX is the coolest thing, but don't take it for granted. Nobody would know completely what the other person is doing, so staying curious and ask questions are important. And then I'll also encourage myself to write more. I love to blog, but I stopped, and then now I feel like, oh, I should have written more. So I wanted to tell myself that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many great insights that all of you have shared. I want to summarize a couple of the things that I've heard over the last 35 minutes.
Oh, wait, I have one more.
Oh, go for it.
This
Go
is
for it.
something I've heard multiple times in my career that I hate hearing this advice, but your career is a marathon, not a sprint.
And do you agree with that or you don't agree with that?
I do, but I'm a very proactive, ambitious person, and I hate hearing it because it tells me I need to like slow down and keep my energy because I will be working until I'm 60, and I have plenty of time to accomplish all the things I want to accomplish.
Yeah, we
So it's a
always
good
have more things
reminder.
we can do before we grow up, right?
Yeah, exactly. Good reminder.
And yeah, so I wanted to summarize a couple of the learnings that I heard over the session before we get into the Q&A. Well, I think one big one is everyone here loves what they do. And I think people look forward to work just as much as they look forward to the weekend. And that everybody here has taken a career path that when it doesn't feel right, changes it. If insurance didn't feel right, change into design. If one function of the same company doesn't feel right, get into another. And I think that if I'm to give it like advice from what I've heard today to people listening at home, it's just that like to listen to your gut, that you'll know when things aren't right. And you'll know that when you're on someone else's path as opposed to your own, but that the people that you work with can help you shape it. That by communicating your needs to the people that you work with, they can help you achieve the goals. Because at the end of the day, people want to help people out. I want to answer a couple quick questions. So Daniela is asking, there's such a stigma against boot camp grads. How can we overcome this? I feel like I learn best at my own pace, and boot camps allow me to do that versus a timed university course. Who wants to tackle it?
I never attended any boot camps, but hearing feedback from the people I know and the programs I've read through, they give me the feeling that, yeah, it's a very, like they just scrub barely the surface sometimes of design. But probably I'm not the best person to speak to it.
I answered this one in the comments, but I'll just repeat it here. When I'm reviewing portfolios, I rarely look at where folks went to school. At the end of the day, a good portfolio is a good portfolio, regardless of where you came from. And some of the best designers I know, my husband included, is a self-taught designer.
Yeah, I couldn't echo that sentiment enough, Meagan. Like, I pay people to quit their jobs so they can start companies. And a lot of the people, I think 10% of the people that I've done this to this year never went to anything beyond high school. And a number of them changed their entire careers around from being something to being a software engineer or to being a designer, all through boot camps or self-taught learning. I think nowadays it's never actually been better, that the best thing you can do is just show good work and people will respect it.
And I would add something to that. Like my first job, they hired me not disregarding what I studied at university or the fact that I had a master. Like they hired me because they saw what I could do, and a lot of things I learned on the job. So.
And I want to have one more question. I think we have 2 minutes left. What's the best way to jump into using mentoring? So I think all of us here are mentors here on the platform. Leandra is saying that her biggest issue is that she's afraid to jump into a mentorship session, afraid that they're going to waste the mentor's time because they're not sure where to start. So from maybe each of your experiences being a mentor through ADP, how would you answer this question? How can you help someone jump into being a mentee?
I think if you have questions, just ask. So just book some people time. Start look for a mentor. Like we are here because of this. Like to mentor people. Like so, if I think that would be a waste of time for me, I wouldn't be on this platform. So just start with that assumption.
Yeah, and plus one. And one thing I'll add is ask yourself why you're seeking mentorship and write those questions down. What are your hopes for the relationship? What do you want to learn from this person? And then just start by sharing your journey. A good mentoring relationship always starts with trust. and good communication. And oftentimes a good mentor will kind of pick up on things you're saying and ask follow-up questions. And, it's just a relationship. You just build on each other, and a lot of it will come natural from there.
Yeah, I had a great mentee applied for some of my time, and she said, "This is the job I want. I don't know how to get it. Let's figure out a path to get there." And so you don't have to have all the questions or all the answers, but having a good destination is a really helpful start. Okay, and I think with that, we're going to be getting kicked out. Thank you all for tuning in, and enjoy the rest of the ADP BeMore Festival. Cheers.
Thank you, Derek.
Thank you. Thanks,
you.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. This was so fun.
Oh, I don't know what to click.